was a lot of milk. And it looks okay. Hello, pals. Oh, let me just adjust this. That's better. Hello, pals. Welcome back to another studio vlog. Good morning. Actually, I don't know if it's the morning anymore. I don't know what the time is. It might be the afternoon by now. It probably is. Today I am picking up bits of rubbish. Do need to tidy my desk a bit. But what I am gonna do today is to take some photographs. I'm gonna do some Christmas themed mock-ups. I'm aware it's only September. I am aware it is like a bajillion degrees outside. In fact, I'm gonna get a fan in here in a minute because it's so flipping hot. I can't stand the heat. Honestly, I would rather freeze than be hot. So can't stand it, just can't stand it. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing some Christmas photos, Christmas photo mock-ups today for greeting cards and maybe some other things, but definitely greeting cards. But I am gonna like very thoroughly talk you through this one because I've had some requests to do a more in-depth video on how first of all, how I make my photo mock-ups, but also how I then go on to use them. So I'm hoping that I can go through all that in this video. So this morning I went out to the range and honestly, they've got so much Christmas stuff in there already. My little insides were like, it's Christmas! Even though it's not Christmas, we haven't even actually got to Halloween yet. So you might think that I'm doing all this kind of thing a bit preemptively, but you have to be organised and you have to have this stuff done before Christmas actually gets here. Otherwise, you're not going to sell anything. So yeah, I'm keen to get it done before the end of September. I'd like to have my Christmas stuff in my shop by the end of September. Whether or not that's doable, considering it's the 12th, I think, today. Time is running away with me, but we shall see. But I will show you some of the stuff that I saw in the range because it was so cute. Okay, this is the view of my desk right now. Look at my cute little pumpkins. Oh, you can't see them from there. Hold on. Let me flip you up a little bit. Look at my cute little pumpkins. They're adorable. My little mushroom is here. And it looks a bit weird with sort of Halloween stuff and Christmas stuff all going on. But we are in that weird in-between season where we have to do both. So I'm going to flip this back down and show you what I've bought. First off, there is glitter everywhere. I bought 2 of these. These are mount boards. I think they're called mount boards. Mounting boards? Colour mount. I'm pretty sure they're called mount boards. I bought these from the range. They were 99p each, and they are just thick coloured pieces of cardboard that you can use as a backdrop for like top down flat lay photos, or you can use them like this way round as like a backdrop if you want to put like a product here, or look, we can put this here and show you. So you can use them. They make really good backdrops and they're just thick pieces of card. They're really cheap and they're ideal for this kind of thing, and you can usually get them in tons of colours. The range didn't have that many colours, but I know you can get lots of different colours in Hobbycraft. Maybe some of the bigger range stores might have it as well, because the one that I go to is a fairly small one. But I bought myself 2 mount boards, and I also bought some baubles to use as little props. And what I will tend to do is get a little piece of blue tack. I've always got blue tack on hand, and stick them like that so that they stand. I will obviously cut the tag off, but it's so that they kind of stand up by themselves, and it just makes things easier. You're not worrying about like stuff rolling around when you're trying to position stuff. But I bought those baubles. Oh, I bought this kind of bauble. It's like a candy cane kind of effect. I really liked that one. And I saw these really cute little sweetie baubles, and again they've got that like candy cane effect on them. I just thought they were adorable and I was not leaving without them. So I also have those for my little photo session. I will probably include some other props too, but these are the new things that I bought this morning. I am not going to waste any time. I am just going to get to setting up a little photo area. And I literally just do this on my desk. Like, we have some big windows here, which helps with light. But I literally just do this on my desk. So when you're taking photos, you want somewhere that's quite bright with a lot of natural light if you can. Outside even is fine on kind of like a not totally overcast, but not totally sunlighty day. Because if it's too bright, you'll get too much shadow. But yeah, if you're struggling to find somewhere like bright enough to take your pictures, do it outside. Especially if you've got like mount boards like these, you can lay them literally anywhere. You could like put that on your patio table if you have one, and no one's going to know that you took your photos outside on your patio table, because like, hold on, let me move forward. Look, I could be in a studio right now. Hold on. Oh, my head's bigger than I thought it was. This is not going to work. But, hold on. Look. Can't see what you can see. Look, we could be in a red room right now and you wouldn't know, apart from the fact that my hand is holding up this thing. But look, this is what you can do with mount boards. So, if I kind of try and show you this on here, so it doesn't matter that I have these other, like these things around the edges, that I will crop those out. So eventually the photo will look a bit more, it's gone too far, like this. So these props that I've put in this photo, they're not like the main attraction. They will just end up being like a little sort of side note. They're not, I don't care if I cut them off a little bit in the picture. It's totally fine. They're just sort of a hint as to what the theme is of this kind of product. I don't love this. I'm gonna actually remove this out of here, but I don't know what's happened. It won't focus. There we go. I'm gonna remove this out of here because I don't love it, but yeah, it's not too bad. This is a better one. Oh, you can't even see it now. Super! That's a better one. I like this part much better. I will pull these up on the screen properly to show you once I finish taking some pictures, but so far they don't look too bad. sometimes there's a reason why I do things a certain way, and the reason I put the pen here and not over here is because the light is coming from this way, and if I put it here, it makes this shadow, and I don't like that. But when I'm putting over here, you still get the shadow's still there, but it's on like that side of the product. And because we read left to right, our brain reads a photograph in the same way because we're just used to reading that way. We read a photograph left to right as well, so if the light source is on the left, that's preferable than having it on the right. Your photo will just look nicer. Nobody will be able to tell necessarily why. Nobody's gonna look at your photo and be like, oh yeah, that's nicer because the light is on the left. But it's just the way that our brains read images because of the way that we read left to right anyway. So any shadows, stick them over that side. Right, I've been taking product photos for a really long time, so I can do this quite quickly. Do not feel bad about yourself if you start taking product photos and you're like, these suck. Product photos are hard. Like, there's just no two ways about it. Like, it's not necessarily just like an easy thing to just go and do. But with practice, you can definitely get better at it. Like, my first product photos were terrible. I also have a kind of fancy-ish camera. You do not need a camera like this to take product photos. In fact, the only reason I'm taking my photos today on this is because I'm recording on my phone. Usually I take all my product photos on my phone, but I can't use my phone to film and use my phone to take pictures at the same time. So I pulled out my fancy pants camera. You do not need a camera like this to take photos for your Etsy shop. You really don't. Like, iPhone cameras are so good now. Like, phone cameras used to be awful and grainy and horrible, and honestly you can take a very decent picture on a phone these days. So like I said, you do not need one of these. If you have one, you might as well use it, because I'm not saying a better camera is always going to produce a better photo, because that's simply not true. But you might find that they're slightly crisper, slightly cleaner, and that the light balance is a little bit better on a fancier camera. That said, don't feel like you have to rush out and get one or learn how to use one. Like, your iPhone is just as good, or any phone pretty much is just as good, not just iPhone. Other phones are available. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through what happens after we've taken the photos. So I get them loaded onto my computer, and from there we head into Photoshop and we do the editing portion of the whole photo mockup thing. So I'm just loading in my photos into Photoshop here, and the first thing that I am doing, and this is not a necessary step for beginners, but the first thing I am doing here is I am straightening out this photo. If you kind of look at it, you can see that the card is not quite square. You can use a tool in Photoshop called Perspective Warp, and it essentially squares up the image for you. So now that card is nice and square and flat, and it just makes things a little bit easier. If you are using a different editing software, or you are using something like Canva, this step is not 100% necessary. I just think it looks a bit nicer when everything is all nice and neat and square. But you can absolutely skip this step and not really worry about it. Most people are probably not going to notice that your image isn't like perfectly square. So that's the first thing I've done, is to square up the image, and then I am cropping it so that the greeting card part is in the middle, because that's the main part of the image. I want it to be in the middle, and you can see that I have cut off the corners of the edges of the baubles in there. like I said earlier, they are not the main part of the photo. They are just a bit of a side note to give some sort of context as to what the product is. So all I'm doing now that I've cropped my photo, I brightened it up a little bit, which I don't know if I actually did on screen or not, but I brightened it up a little bit, and I've just got it all centered how I want it, and now I'm just saving it as its own file. You don't need to add the artwork in right away. You want to save these mock-ups as their own image file first, so that you can use them again and again. That's the idea, that you don't put any artwork on it straight away. So the main image is just a bog standard JPEG photo with nothing on it. Now moving on to the second one, and you're going to see me do the same thing again with this perspective warp tool. I'm just going to straighten this up. Again, it's not a completely necessary step, but it's something that I like to do. The warp perspective tool is really, really handy. Essentially what you do is you just map out the part of the image that you want to be like completely square, and then there's literally one button to square it up. That's it. Dead easy to do if you're not sure about that in Photoshop, but like I said, not 100% necessary. Now I'm just cropping out the image a little bit, getting it to look how I want it, and now I am going back in with that perspective warp because I messed it up the first time. So just going in with that again to square it off ever so slightly more, and then you will see me brighten up the image and save it, and that's pretty much it. Okay, I am now doing the very last image, which I'm going to do the exact same thing again. I am using that perspective warp just to square up the card so that it just makes placing artwork a little bit easier. But if you don't have an image that's completely square, you just need to skew your artwork in a way so it fits the card. And as long as it's not like completely a weird shape, it will be fine. If it's slightly skewed, it will look more natural to just skew your artwork slightly. So I've squared that up. I am just cropping in where I want the image to go. Again, putting that card in the center so that that's the main part of the image. Not worrying too much if I'm cutting off some of my props around the edges, because they're props, they're secondary to the main part of the image. And what I've done there is I just accidentally left a little bit of white space when I cropped, so I've dragged the background just into that space. Again, brightening up this image just to make it look a bit nicer. You want the card to be like as white as possible, or if you're using colored card, which you can do, you want it to look as close to the actual color of the card as possible. So I've saved all of those, and I'm going to go into my files quickly and look at them all together. This is really helpful so you can see if they all look quite similar. You can see this one here does not quite look the same. It's not quite as bright as the others, and I mentioned this earlier about lighting, how the lighting can change really quickly. So you might have to do a bit more brightening on some photos than others. Now I've changed it, you can see they all look quite cohesive now. It's not that one's a lot duller than the other. They now look all fairly similar, which is a good thing. And looking at them all together like this is really, really helpful for helping you spot little mistakes or little things that don't quite look right. I noticed on this image that the shadow from one of the baubles was really bothering me. So what I'm about to do here is to just go in and remove some of that shadow. Honestly, I didn't remove all of it because one, it looked more natural to have the shadow, and two, it would have taken me such a long time to fix the shadow entirely that I just didn't worry about it. It's not going to detract from the image that much that it's a major issue. So I just kind of went in and got rid of it as best I could, as quickly as I could, without worrying about it too much. what you're going to see me do here now is to open up all the mock-ups. Now I've got them how I want them, we can start adding the artwork in, and this is the fun part, to be quite honest. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to go and find a card design that I've already designed. I make all my designs as a transparent PNG, and I do it for this reason, that I can just drop them into my mock-up, resize them, and that's it. Job's a good one. It is so quick, so simple. I don't have to worry about faffing with the file too much. I have the photo mock-up as a JPEG, and I have most of my designs saved as a PNG with a transparent background, and all I do, well, you saw me do it just then, is just drag and drop into Photoshop, resize it. Sometimes I have a play about with noise and blur. If I think that the image looks a bit too obviously like a mock-up, you can add a little bit of noise, blur it ever so slightly by like half a pixel or something, and then it will look a little bit less like a mock-up and a little bit more like a photograph. And I also fiddle with the opacity a little bit to drop that down to like 90, especially if you've got bright whites in your design. Sometimes that's a dead giveaway that it's a mock-up. So if you change the opacity a little bit and just make those whites sort of sink into the card a little bit, it doesn't look quite so obvious that it's a mock-up. But looking at this, I'm pretty happy with it. It looks like a photograph. I mean, it is a photograph that I took, but it just didn't have the artwork on it when I took it. And that's literally it. I've just dropped my design on the top. I'm saving it as a separate photo, and then it's there to use as a product image. So I've sped this up because you are literally just going to see me duplicate that layer in Photoshop into all my other images and just resize accordingly. There's nothing fancy going on here. I'm taking the exact layer that I put on the first image and putting it in the other photos as well. Another reason why I like to do mock-ups is because you can get an idea of what something's going to look like without having to actually print it. Now, I dropped this design into here. My designs are set so that the background of the design, which is transparent, but the border of the design is the same size as it's going to be on the card in real life. So I know that when I print my card, this is what it's going to look like size-wise. Now, I decided that was actually bigger than I wanted it to be. So from dropping this in, I then decided, hold on a minute, I need to change this design. So I've opened up a new template, which is the size of the card. I've dropped the artwork into it, and I'm just making it a tiny bit smaller because I didn't like how big it was showing up on the mock-up. So all I'm doing here is just adjusting my artwork so that it is a better size when I come to actually print the thing. So I've just put this line in the middle here so I can see where the center is, so I can get this design where I want it. I am going to save this as the design file. I'm going to overwrite the existing one because the existing one, it's too big. I am just going to save over what was already there, and then I'm going to drop this in to my mockups the exact same way as I did for all the others. I will just drag it from my folder into the mockup on Photoshop, and you'll see the size difference here actually, because this looked a little bit big to me. Then when I drop in the new one, I get it in the right place. I know it's going to be the right sizes because the backdrop of the image is the same size as the greeting card will be. So I just get the edges all lined up there, and you can see the difference in size between the bigger one and the smaller one. The smaller one is more in keeping with the kind of cards that I generally do. So I'm glad I spotted that before I went to print it. The only reason I spotted that is because the outline of the image is the same size as the greeting card. If you don't do that and don't have a transparent background that is the right size, you're kind of just guessing what your actual product is going to look like. So when you come to do a mock-up, if you don't have the correct sizing as an outline to work from, you kind of just have to guess. And do you know what? I know a load of people that do this, and it's probably fine. Like, it doesn't matter if it's going to be a tiny bit smaller or a tiny bit bigger, but for peace of mind, to know that my mock-up looks as accurate to the actual product as possible, I like to do it that way, so that I know that the size I'm making my artwork is the exact size it is going to be when it's actually printed out on that physical piece of card. Now, all you're going to see me do here is go through the exact same procedure for all the mock-ups. So I think we can just speed this part of the video up. So that's basically how I do my mock-ups. I hope it was helpful. Obviously I'm using Photoshop. You can do similar in Canva. You just need to take a photo, import your photo into Canva, and then as long as your artwork is a transparent PNG, you can just drop it into the photo exactly the same way that I've done in Photoshop. You can do that in Canva too. So yeah, it's really not overly complicated. It's just essentially taking a photograph and putting your artwork on top of the photograph. For greeting cards, it works really, really well. I also use mock-ups for stickers, which I will probably take some Christmas mock-up photos for stickers at some point this week as well. You can use mock-ups for loads and loads of things, especially for printed goods. They're really good for printed goods. So yeah, that's just the way that I do it, and hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know, leave a comment, and I will get back to you as soon as I can, because I'm happy to help, happy to share. I'm not gatekeeping the mock-up knowledge over here. So yeah, if you want more info on that, do leave me a comment, let me know. But I think I pretty much covered everything. My brain tends to be a little bit scatty at best, and what I tend to do is take some mock-ups and then go and turn those into product images. So really the way that my brain works through this process is that I started drawing greeting card designs yesterday, and I was like, right, draw the design, get the photos ready, list it on Etsy. That's the way that my brain likes to do these things. I drew the designs and didn't have the mock-ups ready, so therefore I've gone and done the mock-ups so that I can then put each design on the mock-up and actually make the product picture, then get it on Etsy. I suppose in an ideal world, really what I would do is draw all my designs for everything across the board, take all my mock-up photos in one go, including like sticker mock-ups and sticker pack mock-ups and all those things. I would probably take them all in one go and then actually create the product images all in one go. But my brain doesn't work that way. My brain wants to do one design at a time. I want to draw the design, make the picture, put it on Etsy, and then move on to the next one. So it does mean I'm a little bit sort of all over the place, back and forth, taking photos, editing photos, putting them on Etsy, do the next product, take more photos. It probably takes longer that way. But I just find it easier to be more organised in my brain about what I'm doing if I do it that way. That doesn't mean you have to do it that way. Obviously, you do what you want. If you want to like take all your photos in one go, do that. It's actually better to do that, to be quite honest, because then the lighting is like fairly similar in all your pictures, and then they all end up quite cohesive, rather than some being quite bright, some being quite dark, because the lighting makes such a difference. Like, the difference between the light now and in a few hours is gonna be like, you're gonna notice it on the photos, and sometimes that can mess with the colors and stuff and make stuff not look quite as cohesive. So it's always better to take all your mock-up pictures in one go if you can, but like I say, my brain doesn't work that way, so I don't do it that way. Anyway, I will probably leave it here for now. Like I say, I hope you enjoyed the video, hope it was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you like these videos that I'm making and you just want to watch more of them, click the subscribe button, because then you'll get a notification every time I put up a new video. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, because that helps me build my channel and make more of these videos possible. So have a good one, pals, and I'll see you next time.